Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to say we have Philip today, who's a performance marketing manager. How are you doing, Philip?
I'm great. Yeah, delighted to be here.
Yeah, delighted to have you. Philip, can we start off by you just telling everyone a little bit about yourself and your career to date, please?
Yeah, so I am in marketing now over 10 years or so. I have got a mixture of general marketing roles where I'm, I suppose, literally doing everything from your digital to offline. And then I have also got experience in kind of more specialist roles, primarily around email. Yeah, it's typically the roles that I kind of go for, and the ones that kind of pique my interest are the ones that are aligned to sales teams, where you can actually have a real impact on the business that you're working in. So, yeah, I'm delighted to have worked in a good few roles that are similar to that with say Paddy Power and Hayes Recruitment, and now with National Broadband Ireland, where I'm working marketing roles that have a direct impact in where our business is going and the outcomes that our business is looking for.
Email marketing is such a great channel for especially these kind of periods where it's your Black Friday or your sales period, where conversions, as you know, for a lot of businesses go through the roof, especially for email marketing. But do you have a kind of journey, like different email journeys that you build out that you could refer to that are almost blueprint for several types of businesses and stuff? So
Yeah,
obviously, yeah.
like I think when it comes to email marketing, it's all about, for me, it's all about keeping it simple. So starting with your end goal, like what are we trying to achieve with this campaign, and working back from there. And you may end up sending, and then like the question I used to always get asked in one particular business was the sales team had their own email tool that they could send out batch emails, and they always used to ask me, like, how many should I be sending it to? How many people should be receiving this email? And my question was always like, well, how many is it relevant to? And if it's relevant to, 10 people, then pick up the phone and ring them. But if it's relevant to 50 or 70 or 500, then send the email. And it's all about, like, okay, well, if you get the responses you get back from those emails, if you're a salesperson, can you deal with those responses? Or are you going to be creating a customer experience that isn't going to be ideal? And I think that's the way I always try and approach these things, is really define your goal and then work back from there to understand the touch points that you need. So it may be a case of, right, my goal is to contact people who've attended a certain webinar. The temptation is then to try and add in other people within your database to try and kind of do two or three things at once. I would always say, don't do that. Build two or three different journeys that do one thing and are really specific. Because with email marketing, it's all about the right message to the right person at the right time. If you get one of those wrong, your engagement rates will suffer. And I think I'll always use the example with sorry, that sounds really, really simple, and it is, and it's not. I'm not the first person to say that, but I'm always surprised by the amount of companies that don't follow that. So if I look at, say, my own email, pop into my Gmail, pull out emails from a big sports shop in Ireland. I'll only buy. This is a bit of an insight into me. I'll only buy trainers that are on sale, and I'll only buy Nike or Adidas. And I might buy them just from one store. But the emails I get from that store are, like, say, weekly, and basically everything that's on their website for man, woman, child. But if they were really targeted with me, they would just send me messages saying, Philip, it's our autumn sale, and we have Nike and Adidas trainers on sale. Here's a list. Click through to the website. Off you go. They may only email me 4 times in the year, but there's a good chance I'll convert. the way they're doing it at the moment, I've completely switched off. I'm not engaging with their emails at all because it's just white noise to me.
Yeah, I used a platform called Ametria for a couple of years in that particular market, Under Armour, Adidas, for a retail business like that, and they really enhanced our email journey just by personalization. So pulling through products that particular customer would have looked at from the store. So it's like, remember these kind of emails and stuff like that. So customizable, very much a personalization of the email. And this was years ago. So is that what you think is the true key nowadays to email marketing, is try to get to personalization as soon as possible? So collect that data. And do you have any recommendations, email software wise and stuff, to get to that point?
Well, I think you can use whatever software you want to use, but I think it's all about using it correctly and feeding the right information into that software. So I worked in a company, a huge software company, where they had multiple data points for the one piece of data entry. So for industry, they had 7 or 8 different data points. So if I was a salesperson and I was adding a contact to the database, industry popped up 7 or 8 different times in different ways. So the salesperson didn't know how to fill that in. So as a result, it was only sporadically filled in. So then when I wanted to target everybody in the aviation industry, I couldn't do it accurately because I was trying to pull from 7 different data points. So, I think it's about, when it comes to software and specifically databases, if your database doesn't make sense, then your marketing won't make sense. And I think, the personalization piece, there's so much, we give so much data to companies these days, and they use our data however they use, and that's that's a different story. But how they store that data and how they organize that data determines their success, I believe. Because I might run a company where I go, right, actually, do you know what? All I need is first name, second name, email address, and say for instance with me, the product they buy and whether it's on discount. I don't need to know whether I'm whatever age I am or where I'm living, or there's I think the whole area gets muddled by more and more data being added in. And I think it's almost like a building block thing of like, build your campaigns where you target your personalization on things that you're really confident on and you really understand, and then go from there and build it out from there, because that's what's going to win. And I think if you look at, go into your own Gmail or whatever you use and look at your emails and look at the level of personalization, and oftentimes it doesn't go past first name. And it's incredible. Like, if you think back to, if you were able to pull out the first email you ever received from a marketing point of view, how much different would it be? Yeah, fair enough. The design, etc., would be different, but the actual personalization, I don't think we've moved on at all. And when people talk about like email being a channel that, you often see like email is dead or it's dying, or it's not, like, it's not even, we're not even getting close to optimizing it or making the best of it. Huge potential there, I think.
Do you think that sometimes because sometimes the data is inputted wrong? I've obviously got emails, especially with AI coming into play a lot more. I've been getting emails recently where, for example, it pulls in the name of the podcast, but then it'll get something wrong in my name because the platform they've used to pull the data, my name is incorrectly pulled in and stuff. So immediately I know it's not personalized. It's AI built. Do you think fundamentally that's probably the reason why things haven't gone too far away from first name, because the other data sets aren't there for everyone across the boards? I know that depends on the company, but
yeah, I think you're right. I definitely think it's because companies are scared to use their data, and if you ask them why they're scared, it's because they're not confident in it. And if they're not confident in it, then try and figure out why. Like, companies I've worked in the past, I found that to be a problem. I've found that, say, like with Hayes Recruitment, our data wasn't as tidy as it needed to be, and it ended up being a manual solution. So myself and my team would spend hours tidying up our data to ensure that, like, literally manually inputting our own codes that made sense to myself and my team, so that when it came to going, right, this person attended this webinar, we knew that we wanted a follow-up email to them. We just put in this code and it pulls it through. But that was hours of work to do. But it meant then that we were creating a personalized journey, because we didn't have the ability otherwise to kind of code in the software we're using to be able to code. They had attended such and such a webinar and create that personalized journey for them. But you're right. If we didn't put in those hours, we would have just been like sending out emails to people that may or may not have attended the webinar. And if you get an email saying, thanks for attending the webinar, and you didn't attend the webinar, it's not the worst thing in the world. But equally, you don't go, oh, they know who I am and they know my behaviors, and as a result, I'm going to react positively to that.
Well, you increase unsubscribes and stuff like that when you start sending out information that isn't correct about the person. It kind of nicely lands onto what is your most successful campaign, or a campaign you can talk about today where you feel like your skill set has really improved the campaign.
So with Hayes Recruitment, we had an annual, and they still do, a hugely successful salary guide. So simple guide with all the salaries per industry and an intro to those industries. And when I first started in Hayes, we used to kind of present it to basically the outside world as a salary guide, a general salary guide. You'll find your salaries here. But kind of to your personalization point, we found that people didn't realize that we were a specialist recruitment firm. So we didn't cover every salary. So that was a simple thing to understand. And right, well, then our message to the world needs to be a lot more specific. So we created then an external marketing plan that really dove into, like, say, construction and property, and the impact that this salary guide could have on the construction and property industry, which would be different to the impact it would have on the accounting and finance side of things. So, that was a light bulb moment. But then internally, I realized that we were still presenting it generally to our sales teams to be able to then bring it to market. And that made me realize, okay, well, we need to put more effort into communicating the importance of the salary guide per specialism and per industry, so that somebody who's a salesperson or a recruitment consultant in the construction and property sector will use it differently to somebody who's working in accounting and finance. And this then just created more and more ideas around, okay, well, how do we make this more specific, and how do we make it land? Because then you go, okay, well, it's relevant to candidates, but it's also relevant to clients. How do candidates want to absorb it? How do clients want to absorb it? And once we started to build all that, it was a huge amount of work. But what it actually did, and was all the way back to like personalization and engagement. The engagement was huge. People were like coming looking for our information because they felt like it was so specialized for them and it had almost been created for them. So that was a huge learning curve for me, especially from a point of view of understanding what's our ideal outcome, and then what channels do we need to make that work? Because again, in say construction and property industry, people are on site. How best do we communicate to them? In accounting and finance, typically you're at a desk. Are there channels there? Well, obviously, it's your email channels that will really work there, but email may not work as well in construction and property. So, like, really diving into all of that and understanding exactly who we were trying to target was tough, because it created so much work, but it was so rewarding because you could see the engagement that came from it. And I think coming back to the database conversation, we gathered so much information then as a result from the people who downloaded our content or engaged with our content. But it was then being able to use that going forward. And a lot of companies will take, right, somebody has downloaded our salary guide, right, we've got a webinar coming up on sustainability. Let's add them in and send them that email. They showed no interest in sustainability. They haven't told you they have any interest in that, but we're assuming. So I would stop doing that. I'll go, right, if they engage with our salary guide, and we're just going to keep them on the salary guide journey until such points they tell us they're interested in something else, and then we'll add them into that journey. And I think again we saw engagement rates really kind of spike because we were being more thoughtful about what we were doing, and we weren't just kind of going for huge numbers, because again, especially when you're working with a sales team, you want to send them leads and you want to send them people to speak to. You don't want to send them too many people to speak to because they just come overwhelmed, or the quality isn't as good as what it should be. So if we put in the work at the beginning, it really cleans up the journey down the line, internally and externally, I think.
Yeah, you've made some excellent points there throughout as well, Philip. I suppose the one thing I wanted to ask from the guide itself is, what was the big outcomes that you saw as massive successes? So I'm guessing lead generation, getting emails and data and stuff was one. And then how relevant was that to the audience you were looking for? Because that kind of guide, it might be going to competitors or other kind of aligning industries, not necessarily your end user. And then the attention from the guide itself, did you get like placements on Irish media in different places because it was so useful? Are they the end goals? And can you talk a little bit about
them? Yeah. So like from a purely from a marketing point of view, and I to be honest, I don't like looking at it from a marketing point of view, because I think then you become isolated and you become siloed in your company if you just concentrate on marketing. But it's a good place to start. So yeah, engagement rates with our whatever channel we're operating on. Email was a huge channel for us. Social media worked really well for us. But then kind of face-to-face events, trying to measure that and measure engagement there. We actually found that face-to-face events just didn't really work, because the way people wanted to digest it was, just give me some information, give me the guide, and I'll go off and use it. Having to actually physically go into an event and sit there as we had somebody present the information to them just wasn't for them. But then when we moved that online to the webinar, that really worked. So again, attendances, all that, sign-ups, attendees, etc., was where we looked from a, and then obviously pure downloads of the guide, etc. From a media point of view, it was brilliant for us, because after we did this for 2 or 3 years, the media would come looking for it, which made it a lot easier, and pickup was a lot higher then, when we got a name for ourselves, where people would look to Hayes for the salary guide, because we based it on the salary guide was all based on input from our clients and candidates. So it was a real kind of understanding of what was actually going on in the market, and we could present that information back to the media. So it was lapped up. So yeah, so when I go into a board meeting to present back the success of something like the salary guide and the marketing campaign that went with it, I would be enthused by, here's how great our engagement was, etc., etc., etc. But I was always waiting for one of the sales directors, to turn around and ask me what the impact on our whether we got more candidates or got more clients, what was the actual business impact of the report. And that's where in my first couple of years, I definitely didn't get it, didn't focus on it as much. But now it's where I would start, and always think, right, if we do this, what is the impact for our recruitment teams or our sales teams, wherever I'm working. So yeah, like it's the campaign isn't a success if it hasn't impacted the business. I might sit back and go, oh yeah, it was great. We got, a slot in the Irish Times, or was on RTE or whatever. But really, did it generate more clients or candidates? And if it didn't, then it wasn't a complete waste of time, but it's not far off.
Right. And tell me, in terms of softwares, what email platform do you prefer? What would you recommend to anyone listening?
HubSpot is one that I really enjoy working with. I just think it's so intuitive. I think it looks nice, which is always a good start, but it actually works. When they talk about drag and drop and simplicity, for me, that's kind of what you're looking. You don't need any kind of coding expertise or to, that feeling when you're looking at something and nothing makes sense. You don't get that with the HubSpot platform, and I think it kind of integrates so seamlessly because they've built it internally as opposed to kind of acquiring companies and trying to integrate them, because they've built everything themselves. It all integrates, and I think it comes back to that idea around the database. It's so easy to add information to HubSpot so that it's really clear. So then when it comes to actually using that information, be that on social or through email, you know what you're doing, and yeah, it's just really simple.
Yeah. And staying up to date, how do you stay up to date with new information and stuff? And
So I think, for me, like, being brutally honest, I really don't read as many trade publications and marketing publications as I should do. So what I kind of, so where I get my information, I suppose, is from LinkedIn and following people that kind of I know are working similar positions to me or are doing similar things to me. And then I think obviously having that mix of people who are doing things completely different, like, the likes of a brand like Paddy Power. They're always doing some incredible things they're just wild. If you compare it to, like, National Broadband Ireland would never do that. But what can we learn from that campaign that Paddy Power have just run that has just caused controversy? Can MBI do something similar not the same, obviously, but what was their end goal and how do they go about it? And can we be a disruptor in a certain way, if required? Maybe a situation where being a disruptor really isn't going to gain you anything. But I think it's looking at what's going on, and even as a consumer myself, I think people often forget, especially marketing people often forget, that actually, regardless whether you work in marketing or not, you're exposed to marketing all the time. And if you're sitting in a bus stop waiting for a bus and your mind is wandering, the advert to your left hand side is speaking to you, and you're absorbing that. And I always kind of think it's interesting to if you've got time to kill, to look at what you're being exposed to and how could you apply that to the job you're in at that time.
Yeah, really well said. Really well said. And looking at the digital industry as a whole, what do you see as the biggest opportunity in the space right now? What could you recommend to our listeners that makes you think, okay, I would definitely check out this next year, I suppose?
Yeah. So I think the obvious answer is AI, and really trying to. I think if you made a list of your frustrations and the things that you found really difficult to do in your job, or stuff that you just don't like doing, and spend some time trying to figure out how AI could help you with that. So be that, writing social media posts is great fun when you start, but when you've been doing it for months and months, trying to say the same thing differently is really hard. And so I think I found AI is brilliant there, because it kind of helps with that writer's block. And I think you'll find so many examples there. So, like, that's not exactly a groundbreaking answer, not that I have particularly many of them, but I think, and I just think keeping it simple. Like, if for next year, I would really challenge people to keep things as simple as possible and understand your end goal getting the right message, right person at the right time, and then focus on keeping your data clean, because that is an incredible way to stand out from your competition. If you can get a message to somebody that makes them feel like you're only emailing them, if that's the experience they get, or whatever channel it is, if that's the experience they get, then you're winning. You're doing something really well. And I really challenge, like, that's how I look at our marketing team. I go, well, do people really feel like we're talking to them? Now, it's difficult, obviously, if you're talking about a TV campaign. It's not necessarily always going to be the case, but trying to keep that in mind is something that I really kind of I really try and focus on, because I think if you lose focus of that, then everything just goes a bit wild, and it becomes unstructured, and yeah, you don't get the results you want.
I think the point you made there, I know you're saying it was simple, but it's a really good point. Like, even social media posts or email posts, if you're using AI, you're prompting them away from what you would normally do. So you understand that, going back to your like recruitment kind of thing, and you mentioned construction and property there. If you haven't done posts around that particular area, but you have the salary guide and you want to focus in on something, AI, by giving them prompts, it will give you that writer's block. It will break down that barrier that you're struggling with, and you will find ideas that you wouldn't necessarily have had. And it is a new lease of life. Just by asking a couple of questions, they don't even have to be the right ones. They'll just put you in the right space. So I think it's a really good point. But Philip, unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask you the last question of the show today, which is, if you could boil up one personality trait that you have yourself that you could pass on to others, what would it be?
Ask questions. Yeah, I think you stumbled on it there just a couple of seconds ago. When I look back to how I was at the beginning of my career, I was always that person who sat in the room and had a question but didn't ask because I thought it was a stupid question. And you'll always hear the phrase, there's no stupid questions, ask questions. Nobody asks a question, but they have questions. Ask the question. Ask whatever question it is, because it'll help you. And even asking questions of senior people, of junior people, it doesn't matter who they are. Just ask as many questions as you can, because if you have those questions, if you don't have questions, that's fine as well. Like, I'll often still sit in rooms and not ask a question. But I don't have any. But I don't shy away from asking questions. That's not to say that I'm still not intimidated by people and don't ask questions that I should have asked. But I think that's really something that has really helped me, because people feel important then. If you build a rapport, and I think one of the things that is often overlooked in the working world is building a rapport with people, and how important that is. Like, working remotely is brilliant, but it's really hard to build a rapport so that when something goes wrong, or you've got a tricky situation, or you actually have a question, if you built up that rapport, the conversation is so much easier. If it's not, then it's kind of stunted and you don't actually get the information that you need. So yeah, maybe asking questions and building a rapport will be the two things that try and bottle. It was a big bottle.
Love it. Philip, if anyone wants to find you, reach out to you after this, how can they find you?
They'll find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, just search Philip Bourke, you can find me there.
Yeah, that's it. Philip, thanks so much for being on the show. Absolutely loved it. I'm definitely going to improve my emails on the back of this one. But yeah, thanks so much for being on the show. And thanks everyone for listening, watching, everything else.
And thanks for doing it, Tom. It's brilliant. Well done.